2, 1. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Ask an Accountant podcast, where we demystify accounting by simply asking your pressing questions from the industry's best and brightest. My name's Tony Wilson, your host, quirky friend, and total accounting nerd. I'm super excited for today because today I'm joined by my friend, Cheryl Lanahan, the mastermind of Plumbbooks, a virtual bookkeeping firm that specializes in providing bookkeeping services to plumbers and service providers. Her business is thriving, so much so that she recently hired an operations manager so she can help build up capacity for that high demand service that she's providing to these plumbers and service providers. Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be here.
Awesome. All right. Oh, I'm just checking on this. We're still good. I think we're still live. We should be good. Anyway, Cheryl, I'm so glad to have you on the show today. But before we get too far, when you and I were having a conversation a couple weeks ago, one of the questions that I asked you was, okay, what kind of fun fact, what one interesting fact could I give to our audience who's listening just to get to know you a little bit better? Do you remember what your answer was to that question?
Yeah, I said, and something I find interesting is I play Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's my most recent one. And I can't wait for the next one to come out, but I'm having a good time with Zelda.
Well, and the great thing is like, as you were sharing that, we ended up, I kind of pulled on that thread, and here to come find out, Cheryl is this like amazing nerd. Like, she's talking about like Ocarina of Time and the music in there, and like a big fan of Zelda. So I was shocked. I was just shocked in all the right ways, though. So that was cool. And you also had mentioned too that was it your husband? Did he get you into all this, or were you just into this even before?
No, I think we talked about the fact that he and I played like a couple hundred hours on Oblivion way back in the day,
which is so great. Because again, It's like, you don't think, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, like bookkeepers, accountants, whoever, like we're still people. And sometimes we have these really cool, you know, stories that people don't necessarily always know about. Like you in your nerdiness, I also am a bit of a nerd. If I can share a little fun thing with you. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the Thumb series by any chance?
No.
So this guy, he made a bunch of random videos. They're like 30 minutes long. They're so dumb, but I love them. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
There's Bat Thumb. There's Thumb Wars. There's Thumbtanic.
Oh my gosh, I have to watch those.
Yes, absolutely. I'm tempted
Thumb Wars. I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I'm tempted to buy them and send them to you because I think if you like Zelda, if you like Oblivion, you like all those kinds of stuff, I have a feeling like you will probably like those.
Awesome.
So Cheryl, that was one of the many things that endeared me to you, and I'm one of the many reasons why I'm super excited to get to interview you today. So, now you are running Plumbbooks now, but I imagine you haven't always been doing that.
True.
So, do you want to maybe just share a little bit more about your story? Like, what brought you to this point?
Well, I was working doing nothing, nothing interesting. And my buddy was a plumber, and he says, Cheryl, you should come work for me because, I can do things. And he needed someone who could do things. And so I basically became his number two while he was trying to scale his business. And it was super fun. And I learned so much. And we had a really good time. And then I moved out of state. So much for that. But I brought with me some of his admin and his bookkeeping. So I was doing the bookkeeping virtually, moved to a new state, and thought I could probably do this. I have a child at home. I have some aging parents. I should be around. I can't just go get an office job. So I went to school. I went to bookkeeping school and learned a bunch of stuff, opened the business. And now I'm doing Plumbbooks. I do bookkeeping for plumbers, electricians, and HVAC, home service providers. We're all service-based, so it's not new construction.
Yeah, that's super cool.
We do.
So it sounds like, in this journey of yours, it wasn't necessarily like you went to school and you're like, I am going to be doing accounting. I'm going to be doing bookkeeping. You kind of stumbled into it, didn't you?
I did. And I'm so glad because I am having the best time ever. Okay. Number one is being an entrepreneur is super, super fun. And I did not know how fun it was.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I get to work with other entrepreneurs. All of my clients are doing the same thing. And we have this, I don't know, just this instant understanding with one another. That's also super fun.
Yeah. There's something I think that's like electric about it, right? Because like you, like I'm also entrepreneurial in nature. And
it's
when
so fun.
Well, and then when you get to work with clients who are also in that same boat, it's like, I don't know, you kind of just like feed off of that energy together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so awesome. So you were originally in Washington State, right? And then you moved. You're in Idaho now, right?
I am. Yep.
And
but
so,
I don't have any clients here.
Well, and that's the thing I thought was so interesting. And this is for, all you listeners out there. The thing that I've loved about seeing what technology has done, especially for like the bookkeeping field, is it's opened doors that weren't previously there. Because I know a lot of, service providers from 10, 15, 20 years ago who their expectation would be you're there either like within that very close geographic location, or at least somewhere where you can come into the office and maybe help you do the books. But you can do this 100% virtually, right?
Yep. So the employer saves on, they don't have to hire a full-time bookkeeper. They don't have to try to get a part-time bookkeeper who can kind of do this and kind of do that. They can hire an expert and not have to pay a full month's wages and bring another person in the office who brings office drama and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think outsourcing bookkeeping is just really the way to go a lot of times until you get really big.
Yeah, that is so great. And this is why it's great to work with professionals like yourself, because you make that just so much easier for those plumbers, those electricians. You said HVAC and home service providers. That's super cool. Okay, so given your specialization in plumbing and service-based businesses, can I ask you a couple like very specific questions?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So my first question for you, and this isn't necessarily like an accounting question or a bookkeeping question, but it has to do with the business as a whole. What operations systems would you recommend to a plumber or a service provider that's just starting out specifically?
Okay. So yeah, the new guys can totally get away with using QuickBooks and Google Calendar. You could do that for a couple of years, and that's all you really need. After that, they have some really good software. There's all kinds of software out there. And two that I would recommend for newer businesses would be Jobber and House Call Pro. There's so much to say about these, but if you're not offering like service contracts that are monthly, Jobber is just really easy entry. It's easy to do. It's really inexpensive. It syncs with QuickBooks online, and it'll send invoices and reminders, and it'll send text messages to the client saying I'm on my way and things like that. It has a lot of stuff that's built for home service providers. And House Call Pro does also. And both of them integrate great with QuickBooks Online, which is super, super important.
That's so cool. The thing that was interesting, like as we were going through and having this conversation, it kind of strikes me that a bookkeeper would even have an opinion about an operations system. But I think it speaks to like what we do in the bookkeeping accounting world, where we're so intimately acquainted with the business that like, it's probably important that you have an opinion about, what are good systems and what are not, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they have to work great on the front end. Absolutely. But then if they're messy on the back end, it'll cause you other problems. So those are two that are great both ways.
Yeah. When you talk about, problems that have happened maybe on the back end, do any like specific examples like come to your mind that, issues or anything that you've come across?
Well, not with those softwares. With other softwares, yeah, it's just basically they push the invoices and the payments over to QuickBooks. And if that breaks down, things break down.
People get like double billed or they don't get billed or that kind of stuff?
You can lose track of your accounts receivable, so people cannot get billed, or it just makes a mess in the books. So your books don't make sense, and you can't rely on them for financial information.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you have half in one system, half in another, it just is not going to work right.
Oh yeah.
So
that would be a nightmare
they
to
have to
deal
sync.
with. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I can only imagine. So hence the reason why when you're working with a pro, somebody who knows the industry, like Cheryl does, is super helpful, because you've seen the systems that don't really work very well, and you've also seen some of the systems that work really, really well, right?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so speaking of our financial systems, what are some of the most common issues that you've seen when service pros run their own books?
Okay. One of the most common things I see is that undeposited funds are handled incorrectly. So the payments come over from the software saying, hey, all of these checks have come in. And then the service pro will go to their QuickBooks and see deposits, and they will deposit those into sales. And that's not the right way to do it. So if you need help doing it, let me know. You need to select which payments are in each deposit. And if you don't do it like that, your deposits or your sales is double reported. So it looks like you've made twice the money that you actually have in your report. So, and I see that a lot is because QuickBooks is just a bit weird. It's just a bit weird how it does it. You have to understand how it works, and it's not very intuitive for that little part.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it, it can make your numbers look really skewed.
Yeah. And this is a really silly question for me to ask, but what's the impact? Let's say I do let that happen and there is a double counting of my revenue. What's the impact there?
Well, one thing is you don't know what's going on with your money. I mean, you can look at your bank account and see, oh, I have some money. And that is no way to run a business. You have to know better what's going on with your money. One of our taglines at Plumbbooks is know your numbers. You have to know your numbers, and you have to know what they mean, and they have to be accurate. And then if you were to try to apply for a loan and you bring in your balance sheet is going to be all messy because your income isn't going to be right. So things will be difficult.
Yeah, total mess. And so those are great examples. And the other thing that also comes to my mind is I'm like, shoot, if I were to just take that and assume that that's truly my revenue, I'm probably going to be paying too much tax, right?
Right. Or you can think I can go buy something.
Oh, true.
And you can't.
Yeah.
Or you're confused. You're like, okay, the books say I'm making this kind of money. My bank says I'm making this kind of money. What's going on?
It would be a little bit of a nightmare, a little bit of a mess. So if anybody out there is in that spot and you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize maybe my books actually aren't right because I'm running them. Those might be two common issues: the undeposited funds, and then sometimes the flip side, maybe even underreported or unreported income. So that's good. So if we're thinking about things that are issues in running your own books, what kind of recommendations would you give? How would you have somebody set up their books if they're a service provider so that the books are going to be meaningful for them?
Okay. I have a lot to say about this.
Yes, go ahead.
Because this is what we do. This is why Plumbbooks exists, is to make your numbers meaningful. It's not good enough that they're accurate. You have to know what they mean. What do these numbers mean to running your business? And that's the gap we try to bridge. Okay, so if you're brand new, you want to make sure you have a good chart of accounts, which I just told Tony that I have one I will give away. So we could talk about that later if you like. So you have to have a good chart of accounts. You have to know how to put how to handle all of your expenses and all of your things. And you really have to understand gross revenue, gross profit, and net profit. Okay. Those are three big numbers you have to understand. Your gross revenue is everything that comes in. Your gross profit is everything that comes in less your cost of goods and your cost of labor, which I'll go into in a minute. And your net profit is everything that's left down at the bottom. gross revenue, really easy to understand. Your gross profit is taking out your cost of goods sold and your cost of labor. Now, your standard QuickBooks chart of accounts that you get, it doesn't break any of that out. So cost of goods is going to be anything that you install on a job site. That's your cost of goods. Anything you take out with you and you leave it there, that's your cost of goods. Your cost of labor is going to be the person who takes it out there, installs it in the house. So it's important to break out your labor between the people going out and installing and the people in the office or the owner. Okay. So this is your overhead. The people in the office and the owner, that's your overhead. People in the trucks, that's your cost of labor. And you really want your gross profit to be 50% at the very least. Okay. That's a good number to shoot for. Yeah. So that means you charge them for this job, what you pay your guy to go out and do it, and what you pay in the parts to put in should be no more than half of what you're charging that job for. And that includes your cost of labor is going to include your all the insurance on your, well, the personal like health insurance. It's a burdened labor rate. So it's the health insurance and it's the workers' comp and it's whatever, all your employer taxes you have to pay on your worker. All of those things are in your burdened labor rate. And that's all above the line as part of your, the things that subtract from your gross profit.
Yeah, that's so good. And real quick, touching on that, I think what I've seen, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because you've had different experiences than me, but a lot of times what I've seen when I come into a set of books that has not necessarily been set up to be meaningful is I just see like expenses, and it's just like a vomit of expenses. And what I'm hearing you say is, hey, if you want to make the most out of your P&L and your setup of your books, you want to clarify, like, is this a direct cost, right? Is it a cost of goods sold? Is it a cost of labor? Or is it indirect, right? My office, my administrative, more of the indirect types of costs. And from what you're saying, you even touched on it, where you're like the 50%, that gross margin number.
Yep.
Why it's so important that you have, that you set your books up right is because you can't have those types of conversations, the benchmarking conversations, because you can't, it's like an apples and oranges situation when you then go compare it against another business. But if you set it up right at the beginning, you can now have more meaningful conversations about, let's shoot for 50%, or let's see if we can price this thing a little bit differently. Is that right?
Yep. And also, if you're not making money, you don't know why. If your books are not split out, you don't know why you're not making money. Is the owner taking home too much? Are you paying your guys too much? Is your cost of goods too high? Is your just your office staff, does that cost too much? You don't know it unless you break it all out.
That's so.
And I do need to point out here, if you are running as a sole prop and you're taking owner draws, or if you have loans, you're paying for vehicles or other loans, that outgo does not show on your P&L.
Ooh, good call.
It shows on your balance statement. You can't see it on your P&L. So sometimes your P&L looks like you're making money and your bank account looks like you're not. And that's really a problem. At Plumbbooks, we have ways to make everything show up on your P&L because we just want you to look in one spot and know exactly what's going on. We have special reports too. We're all about making things easy.
That's good. That's good.
But anyway, I need all of these guys to know that your owner draws don't show up on your income statement.
That's so good.
And that can be, especially for a small operation, that those can be big numbers and they really matter.
Oh yeah. That's so important. And when you're saying that, the thing that comes to my mind is the importance of, yes, the P&L is super important, but there are two other really critical statements for people to at least be aware of, because if we know the three major statements that we should be aware of, we should be able to find stuff like what you're talking about when you have the owner draws in the cash flow statement, because your P&L isn't going to show everything. You also need to know what's your balance sheet, because that's also going to tell you like what's your actual cash balance and all that sort. So that's really, really good. Do you have anything else that you could think of when it comes to like setting up books, anything else that you would want to convey to people, or is that the bulk of it for you?
There are so many things to talk about, but I should refrain.
All right.
But cost of goods, it's really important. I think it's called job supplies on your standard QuickBooks account. And that is counted as an expense. It's below the line. It's not going to be counted as your cost of goods. So if you don't have a good chart of accounts, get mine, or at least add one that says cost of goods sold, and QuickBooks will show you how to label it so that it goes where it belongs on the income statement. And that'll give you a lot more information.
That's really good. And for all you listeners out there, I have dropped in the comments or the little description section below in YouTube. You can go ahead and email Cheryl at info@plumbbooks.net if you wanted to get a free copy of that chart of accounts, which, Cheryl, thank you so much for giving our listeners that. If you guys need that, you can also email. So again, it was info@plumbbooks.net, right?
Mm-hmm. 2 B's,
Plumbbooks. That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay. One thing you did talk about though is you're talking about the chart of accounts. How would you explain? So let's say like we're talking to somebody who they've never done this stuff before. They don't know kind of like this new language of bookkeeping, accounting, whatever. Yeah. How would you explain, like in simple terms, what is a chart of accounts?
Oh, that's just how you categorize everything. So you're going to have bank accounts. That's in your chart of accounts. You're going to have sales accounts. So everything that you sell, these numbers are going to be tracked in your sales account. You're going to have expense accounts, cost of goods sold account. That's just where we track your expenses. And then at the bottom, what comes in gets subtracted from what goes out. The other way around, you get a number at the bottom.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah, it's something that I've heard people talk about. They're like, I'm not really sure I understand the chart of accounts. Yeah. It's kind of like an index, right? It's like a table of contents.
Right.
It just organizes all the different accounts that you can choose from. So I think that's good. Okay, so talking about operations of the business. If we're ever going to be successful in growing and scaling our business, we need to eventually document our operational processes, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what tips could you give to that plumber who's looking to build their business, but they're either resistant to documenting their processes or they're just struggling to put pen to paper and finally write that manual?
I would say just start somewhere. Don't stay stuck, start somewhere. I had a buddy talking to me about, they just bought new iPads for everybody. And his plumber put the iPad on the bumper of the van and drove away. And so my buddy was on his way to go get it because he had GPS on it and it's, on the side of the road. So he's on his way to go get it. And I'm like, yeah, since these are new, you need to put some sort of policy in place. He's like, yeah, I got to write that manual. And I was like, no, do not write the manual. Write this one policy. And we talked about it and we said, okay, the tablet can be in your hand, in your tool bag, or in the console in the van. That's the only place it can be. So now that he's written up a policy, the plumber is responsible to follow that policy. And then if they deviate, if they put it on the bumper of the van and drive away, this is obviously now an infraction of the policy. And so the plumber doesn't have to be, how do I deal with this? Does, this guy did it this way and this guy did it this way. What's, and he didn't have to sit down and write an entire manual. And he wrote up that one process and he had the guy sign it the next day. And that's page 1 of his new manual. Yeah. And page 2 will happen the next time something comes up, and page 3 will happen after that. And eventually it'll get done. And maybe that's not the fastest way to do it, but it's a whole lot better than just being stuck and getting 0 done.
Yeah. Oh, Cheryl, I love that approach. And I even love that story because it still sticks with me. But the reason I love that approach so much is what it says is start with where the need is and then document to the need. Don't start from like the theoretical conceptual stuff. Just start with where the need is. Because sometimes there's certain things that don't need to be documented because it's so common sense. But then things like this,
you would think.
You'd think, well, right, exactly. But it's when things start to break down that you can create that really simple standard operating procedure or that policy.
At least plug the big holes first,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And I feel like if I remember correctly in how you were talking about how your business runs, you guys kind of employ a similar approach to how you guys document your processes, right?
Oh, we document everything. And the software changes so fast. And we're not talking about just QuickBooks. We have QuickBooks, we have ServiceTitan, we have HouseCall Pro, we have Jobber, we have all kinds of software. And then we have all the software we use in our business. Okay. So we have a whole bunch of other software that's back-end software, and everything changes all the time.
Right.
So right now I'm using it's called Guru at Get Guru. That's what I'm using for our processes.
Cool.
And they're just little cards, and you put the process and the videos and whatever in the cards, and we're just continually refining those.
So this Guru app, does it have like a built-in video capability where you can record within Guru?
I am not sure. We're using Loom.
You're using Loom. Okay. Because I was going to say, I know Loom is like super, super popular, and I'm trying to get my hands on that too. But
oh, man. I love it. I use Loom every single day.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's nice to be able to screen capture and like have that audio like play over of like, well, this is what you do in this, step by step. So that's really
well,
nice.
and we're all virtual. So we talk that way a lot. And I often record Looms for my clients. They'll ask me specific questions. It's really hard to talk about this on the phone. I'll shoot them a Loom video. It's 2 minutes of their life, and they see all the things they need to see. My clients really love it.
That's super cool. And this is just an aside as we're talking about a couple different apps. For everybody out there, Cheryl knows so much about a lot of different technology. Like, I learn stuff every time I have a conversation with her. So even if you just want to get to know some amazing tech stack that she's got,
really love tech.
Yes, she is the person to go to.
I love it very much.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been like kind of like a no-brainer for me that like, of course, you would love tech. If you love Zelda, like you're gonna love tech.
I don't know.
But anyways, okay. So my last question for you, Cheryl. Knowing that service businesses are very like local, I think social media plays some role in kind of like those service-based businesses reaching their customers. So what, in your perspective, in your experience, what role do you think social media plays in being a service-based business?
Well, advertising, number one. I think that's, I think social media is just really a great way to advertise. Google's got the thing, and they do the thing, and they're very expensive, and they got their thing. And it obviously works. But if you're like a little shop trying to break into a bigger, little fish in a big pond, I think that's where social media can really shine for you. Because you can be, I don't know, like your personality can come out. You're not just some plumber. This is the kind of plumber you are. I have clients who put on a lot of local events, like movie night, and they'll have movie in the park night, and they've sponsored some fun runs, I think. And it's a great community thing. And all those, of course, are dispersed through social media. How else do you find out about stuff like this? But it's really able to get their name out there without paying the big bucks that they would have to pay Google, and they're not going to outrank the guy down the road with 20 trucks because he's going to have that all wrapped up. So I think social media is really a great way to advertise, especially for the little guys. And moms groups, I'm telling you, the moms groups are gold. We like whatever the other mom says, we absolutely believe that. I don't know that it's true, but if you get a few moms saying, I've used this person and they were great, you believe that. We're not in these groups to try to steer people wrong or advertise. We are there to help one another out. And if we find a good plumber, we definitely want to share that with our other mom friends. So moms groups and Nextdoor is also the same sort of thing. Not the advertising part, but the whole, if someone in a neighborhood has used you and knows you and likes you, that's really good marketing too.
That's so good. And it seems so simple, but like, this is where I think having specialization in an industry like yours, you kind of see that from like a different angle, right? Like versus somebody else who might be serving an industry that is relatively like location agnostic. This is so important because like you're not going to be providing service to somebody who's like way out of state or, across the country. So you need to be
so the local mom groups, that's super local.
Yeah. And it's super important. And I think it's I still have highlighted here, mom groups are gold.
Oh man, they are gold. They're gold for home service providers. That's for sure.
That is awesome. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for taking time today. This has been lovely. I knew it would be.
Tony, it's been super fun.
Yeah, this has been great. So Cheryl, I want to give you an opportunity to spread some words of wisdom and knowledge. And let me paint a picture for you, because this person exists out there somewhere. This person is either a new plumber, they've recently started their own business, or they are an aspiring business owner and they work for another plumbing company and they're looking to maybe start their own business. What words of wisdom, what words of knowledge would you share with that person?
I would share that the home service provider community in the US and Canada that I found online, they are just super supportive and helpful and just the coolest group of people ever. I am so thankful for this niche I ended up in, that I get to hang out with these kind of cool people. And people want to help each other succeed. It's like you're all on this team. It's super fun. And so I would say to the new aspiring plumber or home service provider to go get in some of these groups. I'm in a lot of them on Facebook. Go get in the entrepreneur groups and the plumbing mastermind groups and the people who want to make their businesses great. And you will find fantastic friends and you'll get fantastic advice and people will be rooting for you to succeed. It's just the coolest place to be.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's so clear from what I'm hearing you say is you're not in this alone. Find people who are going to be there in your court. Absolutely.
And with things being so global now, it's not like you're chatting with your competitor. This will be someone in another city and, make friends and go crush it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What great words of wisdom for that aspiring plumber, somebody who's going to start their own business here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Cheryl. Where can people go to connect with you if they have follow-up questions or want to just reach out?
My website is the best place. It's www.plumbbooks.net.
.net.
Two B's.
.net.
.net. Yep. I'm on Facebook, Plumbbooks. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not on Snapchat. I'm not on Insta. Is that even a thing anymore? I don't know. I'm not on TikTok.
I was just going to say, not TikTok?
Not yet, but I'm sure I have to go there.
Yeah, I think so too. I've heard that it's a great, but anyway.
I do. No, I'm sure TikTok is coming this year. I'm not there yet, but follow my Facebook page. I got some interesting things coming up. Okay. Plumbbooks is going to roll out some cool stuff here.
Plumbbooks.
Not just bookkeeping. So go like the page and you're going to see stuff that's coming out soon.
Check it out on Facebook, y'all. That's what I'm hearing. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Cheryl, thank you yet again. It was lovely to have you on the show today. And for all of you listeners, I hope you found some value in our episode today. If you have a pressing accounting question that you would like future guests to answer, go ahead and email me at tony@equip.com. That's ACCQUIP.com. Also, if you are an accounting professional or you know somebody who might be interested in coming on the show, please reach out to me as well. I would love to interview more people. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, keep calm and keep your clothes on.